recommendations. Re-sign Nada, Bolger, Wilson, Cook, Cundiff, McLean, Yonda, Carr, and TJ. Change the offense. Sign or draft a big left tackle and fast wide receivers. And a big shutdown corner and a dominant edge rusher. Get faster players, get smarter players, get more veterans, but get younger. Fire Ozzie, Cam, Madison, and Flacco. Don't be a tool, Bisciotti, or Biscotti as they said. Get a deal done with the union. And finally, don't be a meddlesome owner.
And that's how Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti ended the State of the Ravens press conference last week and put the 2010 season behind him and his football team. Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside PressBox, presented by Maryland Mutual Mortgage. I'm Stan the Fan Charles. Joining me as my co-host is Joe Platania.
Thanks, Stan. Thanks for having me. And former Los Angeles Dodgers manager and Hall of Famer Tommy Lasorda will be headlining the inaugural University of Maryland leadoff baseball banquet on Friday, February 4th. Joining us tonight is a man that braved treacherous conditions to be on our show this evening.
Did he ever?
Eric Bakich, head coach of the University of Maryland baseball team.
But first, let's go back to the video we just watched. Joe, I thought Bisciotti really commanded that press conference.
Well, it's the only time of the year he really talks to the media en masse, and he should command it. It's his investment, it's his team, and he's a Baltimore guy. He knows the language the Baltimore fans speak. He knows how frustrated they are. He said, "We hear you, your complaints are valid." That's a direct quote from him. He knows that Baltimoreans have strong loyalties and long memories, and they remember championships. They want more of them, and he knows what they want to see the team do to get more.
I thought, though, given how intense this season was, that it was really interesting the tact he took in making light of some of the fans. I mean, he clearly said, "We hear you and we're listening to you," but at the same time, he poked fun at the fans. And I think at the end of the day, we got to remember, it's a football game.
Yes, indeed. He did, sometimes doctors perform heart transplants. Steve Bisciotti performed a perspective transplant on some of the fans that really get on that lunatic fringe, that really get on that ledge and make this a life or death thing. Sure, Baltimore is a passionate town. Football is a passionate sport. It only takes up a small portion of the year when you compare it to baseball. So especially with the poor fortunes of the Orioles in the last 13 years, people get really, really amped up for a sport that's amped up within its own nature.
That's a good point.
So, yeah.
And your point about a kind of a perspective surgery is probably a really, really valid one. Now, the one thing is, though, that he had a reference during this press conference concerning Cam Cameron that I have to tell you, when I left the press conference, I had a different notion of what he meant. But when he said, "Yeah, we kind of like Cam under fire," I thought he meant when the action's hot, we like him under fire, being our offensive coordinator. But everybody else that I listened to in the media took it a different way.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, actually, when you consider Cam under fire, game day, the pressures, the play calls have to be in within 30 seconds. But, of course, his is a very hot seat. I don't think there's any question about it. A lot of dissatisfaction with him among the fan base, maybe among some of the players as well. But I think it's a combination of both when you consider Cam coming back. And the reason he came back, I think it had a lot to do with the uncertain labor situation, which is governing everything that the Ravens and the NFL do this offseason. If there is a lockout, and it wouldn't shock me if there was one, at least there wouldn't be a new system to install or a new coach to...
Easier to install, not that Chuck Pagano is going to install an entirely new defense. He might have a different mentality towards that defense. Much more difficult to enact a new or put in place a new offense.
Right, new offense, new defense would be pretty tough if there's a lockout in force. That's one reason why John Harbaugh loves to promote from within, and this offseason it's more crucial than ever that he does.
Joe, before we take a break and bring in Eric Bakich, the baseball coach at the University of Maryland, we got about a minute in this segment. Do you think John Harbaugh is surprised how much turnover he may end up with on his coaching staff?
I don't think he's surprised, but I don't think he likes it one bit. He values continuity. He values stability. Every time people would ask him about what his brother was going to do, he would say, "Oh, I think he's going to stay at Stanford." I mean, it's just in his mind. It's in his DNA that things should proceed the way they do, the same from year to year. And as we all know, with free agency and with coaches in the network, that doesn't always happen.
All right, Joe Platania in as co-host tonight. Rob Long will be back next week. Before we take a break, let's take a look at our photo of the week, brought to you by Ferocity MMA Club and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Go to ferocitymmmaclub.com for class information.
Mitch Stringer captured this shot of Jordan Williams during Maryland's game against Clemson on Saturday. Williams set a school record with his 13th consecutive double-double, getting 16 points and 11 rebounds to lead the Terps in their 79-77 win against Clemson. Len Elmore, who had 12 straight double-doubles for Maryland in 1974, held the previous record. And you can see more Maryland Terps photos at PressBoxOnline.com, powered by Toyota.
And we will be, as promised, back with a man who braved treacherous road conditions tonight. He's the head baseball coach of the Maryland Terrapins, Eric Backage, up next.
The last two Terps basketball games were on the road, but you can get all the updates at csnbaltimore.com. Writer Todd McElwee takes a look at this key road trip at csnbaltimore.com.